In the meetings, people nodded. In corridors, they whispered. In official conversations, they all agreed. In private conversations, they were very careful.
Fantastic. So, distinguished Toastmaster Nagesh Ramamurthy, people impact beyond the work. People impact beyond the work. Distinguished Toastmaster Nagesh Ramamurthy. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Women, you're not just a mere presence. I truly believe you are a phenomenon. I'm honored to be in this special meeting of women. Thank you for having me. I usually talk about leadership, and here I am talking about it like once again in front of you. As she mentioned, I talk from experience. 40 years of corporate experience has got a lot of stories that I share in Toastmasters and otherwise. And we usually think leadership is tested when things go wrong, when deadlines are missed, when conflicts arise, when two people disagree, your plan collapses, or when pressure enters you. But over the years, I have come to believe something slightly different. Leadership is also tested when works gets done because every completed task leaves two kinds of report. One that goes to the organization. It says project was completed. We achieved the target. Meeting was conducted. Event was so very successful. We delivered the numbers given to us. That report is visible. But there is another report which does not sit in the file but sits here. It is not on the dashboard. It is not even discussed in review meetings. And we all have it either here or here. It says whether people felt respected while they were doing the work. It also says whether they were heard, whether they felt trusted. As they grew in the process, did they survive it? Whether they carried their work with pride or carried it with pain. The second report is not visible, but I tell you, it's very powerful. In organizations, in projects, in clubs, in family gatherings, in the communities we live in, we often remember what has been achieved. But people remember what it felt like to achieve it under a leader. That's why today's topic mattered deeply to me. People, impact on them, and beyond the work. Not just the work, not just the result, not just the applauses that end after some time, but the people. The impact we leave in them, and what remains long after the task is over is so very important. In simple words, people do better work when work does not make them smaller. Yes, when people they do better work, a great work, when they feel work is not diminishing them. Today, I have three reflections from my life which I wanted to share. It's not a lecture on leadership, but I want to invite all of you to notice something that we have often overlooked. Work may finish, but what work leaves in people continues. Many years ago, I was on a large project, $128 million, very significant project, highly visible, high pressure, lot of moving parts. As a project director, I had a project manager reporting to me who was leading a team of about 18 people on this. Now, this project manager was not incompetent. In fact, if you look at the traditional project parameters, he was very effective. He understood the work. He knew how to push the system. He could demand closures. He could get decisions moving. He kept pressure on. timelines, deliverables, and people there. The project was successful, the work was completed, and the client expectations were exceedingly addressed. Deliverables were also achieved. From outside, it was a great project outcome. But while the project was moving forward, something else was happening. The team was withdrawing. They were present in the meetings, they completed the assignments, the reports were sent, they responded to instructions, they did what all that was required. But emotionally, they were closing. The project manager was very assertive, which is useful in leadership. But if this assertiveness often crossed into aggression, he was very demanding, which is sometimes necessary. But his demands often came with disrespect. He was very confident, which is requirement of every leader. But his confidence always sounded like arrogance. You could see in the room. When he entered, people became very careful. When he asked questions, people measured their words. When something went wrong, people did not think, how do we solve this? Instead, they thought, how will we survive this conversation? That's a very important difference. A healthy team is not where the mistakes never happen. A healthy team is where mistakes come out in open so that they don't become disasters. But in that environment, people begin protecting themselves more than protecting a project. Yet there, the project continued. That's why result can sometimes mislead us. People are capable of delivering even when they are tired. People are capable of performing even when they are hurt. People are capable of achieving targets even when they are emotionally exhausted. A completed project does not always mean a healthy leadership. When the project ended, the results were very visible, a lot of accolades, a lot of celebrations. But the residue that remained was visible only much later. Another project came in. There was a possibility to gather the team again under this project manager, and the responses were very clear. No one was eager to be working with him. They respected the results. They did what was required to do, but they didn't want to repeat the experience. And this stayed with me because it taught me something no project report will ever teach. Project was successful, but the leadership had left a residue that remains in the people even after the project ends, even after the target is achieved, even after the celebration and applause is over. Do people carry confidence after work with us, or they carry caution? Do they carry clarity, or do they carry fear? Do they carry ownership, or a relief that, oh, this is finally over? This is not about becoming soft. Standards matter. Pressure is real. Deadlines matter. But pressure and disrespects are not the same. Discipline and damage are not the same. Urgency and abuse are not the same. A leader can be firm without being cruel to anyone. A leader can demand excellence without destroying somebody's dignity. A leader can still connect performance without crushing a person. The organization may celebrate the result, but team members remember the residue. And that's my first reflection from this. Your results may show what you have achieved, but your people will show how you have achieved it. Moving forward, I once observed a leader in a corporate environment who wanted to move to a larger leadership role. He was very ambitious, very articulate, aware of how visibility work inside the organization. The first time to get into the leadership role, he was not selected. The second time too, he was overlooked and the position was given to somebody else when the opening was there. He made a strategic move. Instead of directly chasing that particular role, he accepted a high visible internal assignment, something very close to transformation, communication, and executive coordination. It wasn't his final destination role, but it was something very powerful. And that powerful something that it gave him was the access to leadership meetings, access to information, access to decision makers, access to a lot of platforms and people. And he used that access very well. He spoke very often. He appeared in important forums. He presented very confidently. He became visible across teams. Slowly, people began to see him as someone who could change things. Eventually, when again the leadership opened, that role opened for him that he wanted, a lot of people suggested his name and he got there. And in the beginning, everything was so very impressive. He started new initiatives, he started new teams, he started creating a lot of dashboards. Frequent reviews were conducted, responsibilities were very well distributed. There was movement everywhere in the organization. But over time, another pattern started emerging and become visible. Opportunities were not always given to the most capable people. They were going to most loyal people. Some roles were quietly promised before the process was even completed. Some people supported him not because they believed with his purpose, but because they expected a future benefit. Some remained silent, not because they agreed, but because they feared being excluded from the system. The organization had activity, but it was slowly losing honesty. In the meetings, people nodded. In corridors, they whispered. In official conversations, they all agreed. In private conversations, they were very careful. This is when I understood the difference between instruction and influence. Instruction can travel through authority, but influence travels through trust. Instructions can make people attend meeting, but influence makes them participate in the meeting. Instructions can make people submit a report, but influence can make them care about the truth that is there in the report. So this leader had many people listening to him, but listening is not always respect. Sometimes people listen because they're afraid not to. And fear is very expensive leadership tool. It gives quick obedience, but it destroys honest feedback. It gives visible control, but it weakens ownership. It makes people say yes in the room while withdrawing their energy outside the room. And it's dangerous for any organization. Because when people stop speaking honestly, leaders start believing that it's their theater. They can make people pay. They see this activity as they see activity and assume that it's commitment. If they see movement, they feel that it is committed people doing work. They hear agreement and they assume it is trust. They receive updates and assume it's coming from ownership. But beneath all this, people are not following the vision, they are managing that leader. And that is not influence. That is, I feel, a compliance wearing the costume of commitment. And this is where a leader must pause and ask a very difficult question. Are people moving because they believe in the work or because they are protecting themselves from it? And that question can be very uncomfortable, but it is necessary for all leaders because instruction may get the work done for a while, but influence decides whether people will carry that work with conviction. And that brings me to the second reflection. Instruction may move people without winning them. Influence wins people before you move them. Think what's more important. But leadership need not leave damage. Sometimes pressure can also help and assist growth. Let me come to the third layer of this conversation. After the first two stories, it may seem that I'm speaking against pressure, standards, people ambitions, or performance. No, I'm not. I come from project background. I know work has to be delivered. Clients' expectations have to be met. Deadlines matter. Quality definitely matters. And staying within the cost is prime, and commitment is supreme. Leadership is not about being soft. Leadership is also about being strong without making others feel small. I had a I had a young member working under one of my project managers. He was not yet fully ready for a leadership role, but I had seen and observed some signs in him over a period of time. There was something that about him that I felt is very uh, eye-catching. He listened very carefully. He took notes very seriously. He asked very relevant questions. He did not appear to be important. He showed ownership even in smaller tasks, however small or trivial it was. Many times, potential does not announce itself loudly, I feel. It appears quietly in consistency, people showing curiosity, people taking responsibility, and the way a person handles tiny things or small things. I felt he had the potential to become a project manager in future. But potential alone uh, cannot be somebody's opinion. At some point, potential needs an opportunity. At some point, trust needs a test, and at some point, encouragement needs responsibility. So I gave him a very small project, small but very important. It was not too big a project to crush him. It was an important enough that he stretches himself. He was visible to the client. There were a lot of commitments. There were a lot of coordination challenges. There was enough pressure for him to discover himself. I did not give him a project and disappear. No, I didn't disappear because that's not empowerment. That's abandonment. I gave him space, but I also stayed available. I let him think. I made him decide. I let him make his own plan. I let him own the communication he did. I also watched him very quietly, asking questions when needed. And I created a sort of boundary within which he could grow and also feel exposed. And he proved my intuition right. The project went well. The client was happy. In fact, the client feedback was such positive that they trusted in us. They gave us more work. Work followed continuously for us. More confidence came into the relationship between us and the client. But the biggest success was not only the project, the biggest success was that person. That young professional walked out of that experience with something more than a completion. He walked out of it with confidence. He had evidence that he could lead. He had proof that he could handle responsibility. He was tested that how a ownership feels like. Nitin later went on to earn more accolades. Today he is doing fantastically well for himself. And One, I remember that project. I don't remember the client's appreciation. I remember the confidence it created in within. That to me is leadership residue of the right kind. In the first story, the project succeeded, but people didn't want to work with the leader again. In this story, the project was successful. A person became ready for the future. Same word, success, but different residue. This is the difference standard with dignity which was created. When we see potential in people, we must not only praise it, we must place it with right responsibility on it. Not so much that it will break them, but not so little also that it remain untested, but enough that somebody can stretch and discover themselves. A leader's job is not just to extract performance, reach the end goal. A leader's job is also to create conditions where performance builds a person. And that brings to my third reflection that I want to share with you. Raise the standard, do not reduce the person. So, when we speak about people impact and beyond the work, we are not saying results do not matter. Results matter. Projects must be delivered. Targets must be achieved. Events must be conducted. And commitments must be definitely honored. But leaderships asks us to look more things. Not only was the work completed, but when the work was completed, who carried it? In the first story, the result was visible, but the residue was very painful. In the second story, the instruction created moment, but influence was missing. And here in Nitin's story, the standard set was very high, but dignity was protected, and the person grew because of it. That is the leadership choice that is in front of us every day, even if the work is completed successfully. Can we push people and get the work done? Or can we build people while work is getting done? Can we create fear and call it discipline? Or can we create trust and call it responsibility? Can we chase result so hard that people become tired of success? Or can we create results that people feel proud to remember? Because people do not carry only our instructions, they carry our tone, they carry our fairness, they carry our patience, they carry faith in them, and they carry the way we made them feel when the pressure was very high. So let this not be a question, or I would say, let this be a question that we take back. When the work gets done, what remains in people because of us? The work may end, but what it leaves in people may not end ever. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, distinguished Toastmaster Nagesh. This was very, very thought provoking, and I found that it perfectly aligns with my theme of the day, too, because here we're speaking about honesty and integrity and inclusiveness and looking at people's perspective. That brings me to two most important qualities that I feel that we should be able to distinguish between sympathy and empathy. And that was so beautifully brought out by you, because we always never put ourselves in the other person's shoes. The third, your when you saw Nitin, your intuitiveness made you go into his shoes, empathize with him, and bring out the best in him. And that is what I feel, and I am sure all of us would want to do to every fellow man whom we meet. It's such a beautiful feeling when you are given the space, a safe space, to grow, to nurture yourself, and when you see the result, even after so many years, you feel so proud of yourself, and that feeling nothing else in this world can give. Even crores of rupees will not be able to give them. When you uttered that word, Nitin today is successful, I could see that pride. I wouldn't call it pride. I'd call it some feeling that you can't even describe, and that you have brought out so beautifully. Definitely, we are leaders. We might not be national leaders or leaders in our organization, even at our homes with our maids or with our children, our spouses. We are leaders in every role that we take up, and when we apply these principles to those roles, definitely our life will be more meaningful for ourselves and the people around us. And thank you for bringing that out so beautifully. Every line of yours was worth noting down, so I thought I will wait for the recording because I wanted to give my full attention to this week. Let's give a big round of virtual applause to distinguished Toastmaster Naresh for sharing his 4 decades of experience with us, which is definitely going to make an impact in our lives from now on. Thank you so much. I'm still not out of the impact, but it's